I never loved you, Ava. That was the sentence Roman Blackwell said over breakfast, like he was ordering coffee instead of ending a marriage. The cup slipped from Ava's hand and shattered across the marble floor. 11 months as a Mafia wife. 11 months of cold sheets, locked doors, fake smiles, and waiting for a man who looked at her like a promise he regretted making. But this is not just a story about heartbreak. It is about the moment a woman realizes the cage was never love, the ring was never safety, and the truth buried in her father's past could destroy the man who broke her. Tonight, you will watch a wife disappear, a king lose control, and a secret powerful enough to burn Chicago's underworld to the ground. Like this video, comment where you're watching from and stay until the end. Because Ava doesn't just leave. She takes the truth with her. The truth Ava carried did not begin with Roman's sentence. It had been waiting inside the walls long before she married him. The Blackwell mansion sat above Lake Michigan like it had been built to watch the city suffer. White stone, black iron gates, tall windows, cameras tucked beneath the eaves, guards who never looked cold, even in January. From the outside, it looked like power. From the inside, Ava Monroe Blackwell had learned it was mostly silence. Silence at breakfast. Silence in the hallway when Roman passed her without touching her hand. Silence in the East Wing where he slept behind a locked door. Silence in the photographs where she smiled beside him at charity galas while his palm rested lightly against her back, warm enough for the cameras, empty enough for her to feel it. 11 months earlier, she had walked into St. Bartholomew's Church under a ceiling of painted angels and candle smoke. Chicago rain streaked the stained glass windows. Her father had already been dead for 3 weeks, buried beneath polished stone and whispered rumors. Ava had worn her mother's pearls. Her hands had trembled so badly that Ruth Callahan had to fasten the clasp twice. At the altar, Roman Blackwell waited in a black suit, tall and still with eyes the color of winter water. He was 34, powerful, and feared in rooms where men pretended not to fear anyone. He owned shipping companies, construction firms, restaurants, private security contracts, and half the favors that moved through City Hall after midnight. People called him a businessman on paper. In lowered voices, they called him the Crown of Chicago. Ava had known what he was. Everyone knew what the Blackwells were. But grief does strange things to a woman. It makes danger look like shelter when it stands beside you and says, "I will keep you alive." Roman had said very little at the altar. His vows were clean, measured, correct. No tremor in his voice, no softness in his eyes. Ava remembered searching his face for something private, some small crack of tenderness meant only for her. She found nothing. Still, when he slid the ring onto her finger, she told herself he was simply a man built from restraint. Some men loved quietly. Some men needed time. Some men had been raised in houses where affection had to sneak in through the servant entrance and hide under the bed. That night in the master bedroom, she learned the first shape of her marriage. The room was enormous, with dark blue walls, heavy curtains, and a fireplace that burned too hot. Ava sat on the edge of the bed in a silk robe Ruth had laid out for her. Her wedding dress hung in the corner like another woman had stepped out of it and vanished. Roman stood by the window with a glass of bourbon in his hand. For a long time, he watched the rain. Ava waited for him to turn around, to say something clumsy, to ask if she was all right, to touch her shoulder, to be less like a stranger. When he finally faced her, his expression was unreadable. "You're safe here," he said. Ava swallowed. "Is that all I am supposed to be?" His eyes moved over her face, not with desire, not with dislike, with calculation maybe, or caution. "You buried your father 3 weeks ago," he said. "You don't know what you want. I know I don't want to feel alone on my wedding night." Something flickered across his face and disappeared before she could name it. Roman set the glass down. "Give me time, Ava." She heard the sentence the way a starving person hears a door opening. So she nodded. She gave him time. She gave him mornings where she dressed carefully and came downstairs hoping he would notice. She gave him evenings where she sat across from him while he read reports and answered messages from men who called him boss. She gave him quiet loyalty at funerals, fundraisers, church services, private dinners, and one long night at a hospital when his mother's heart finally gave out. At that funeral, Roman had stood beside the casket as if grief were a room he refused to enter. Ava had slipped her hand into his. His fingers had closed around hers. Only once. Only for a moment. But she remembered it with humiliating clarity because for weeks afterward she lived on that single pressure of his hand, like it was proof of something growing beneath the ice. Then came month 3. Roman moved fully into the East Wing. No explanation, no fight, just a line drawn through the house. Ava learned not to ask why after the first time. She had followed him down the upstairs hall one night, barefoot, wearing a cream sweater over her nightgown. The house was asleep. Snow scraped against the windows. Roman had stopped outside his door and looked back at her. "Go to bed," he said. "I was trying to. Your room is the other way." "My room," she repeated. His jaw tightened. "Ava." There it was, her name in his mouth like a warning. She went back to the master bedroom and cried into a pillow so quietly she gave herself a headache. By month 5, she knew the rhythm of the estate better than she knew her own husband. The main gate was always guarded by 2 men in dark coats. The west garden had motion lights. The kitchen entrance stuck when it rained. The cameras in the library blinked red when active. The 3rd step on the back staircase creaked no matter how softly she moved. The guards changed shifts at noon, and for 12 minutes the East Service Gate sat unwatched because Vince Carter hated paying overtime and the new men were careless. Ava noticed these things because the house gave her nothing else to study. She told herself it was boredom. Somewhere deeper, some wiser part of her was counting exits. Arthur Monroe had raised her to notice details. He used to take her to hotel lobbies when she was a little girl and ask her to close her eyes. "How many exits, little bird?" She would giggle and point. One by the elevators, one behind the front desk, one through the restaurant. And who was watching you? The man with the gray hat. And who was pretending not to? The woman reading the newspaper. Arthur would smile with pride and kiss the top of her head. "That's my girl." Back then, she thought it was a game. Now she understood that her childhood had been full of games that were not games at all. Her father had been beloved in public. Arthur Monroe, the gentleman king of Chicago's old Irish network. He gave money to hospitals, shook hands with bishops, sponsored youth boxing leagues, and could make aldermen return phone calls before their coffee got cold. At home, he had been warm. That was the cruelest part. He read to Ava before bed. He made pancakes on Sundays when her mother was alive. He cried every August on Lillian Monroe's birthday. He kept her photograph on his desk for 13 years, a black and white picture of a woman with gentle eyes and a smile that looked like it had secrets folded behind it. Ava loved him with the blind devotion of a daughter who had lost one parent and could not afford to question the other. When Arthur died, men came to the funeral in expensive coats and cheap grief. Roman stood near the back of the church, silent, surrounded by men who lowered their voices when he turned his head. 3 days later, Roman asked Ava to marry him. No kneeling, no flowers, no trembling confession, just a private conversation in her father's study while rain tapped against the window, and the house still smelled like sympathy lilies. "Your father wanted this," Roman said. Ava stared at him. "My father wanted me to marry you." "Yes. Why, to protect you." From who? Roman's eyes darkened. "From everyone who smiled at you during the funeral." She should have run then. Instead, she looked around her father's study at the leather chairs, the old hunting painting, the shelves of law books he never read, and she felt like the floor had disappeared beneath her. Roman was the only solid thing in the room. So she said yes. Now 11 months later, her mother's coffee cup lay in pieces on Roman Blackwell's marble floor, and the man who had promised protection had finally admitted the cage had never been love. Ruth cleaned the broken porcelain slowly. Ava stayed in the dining room after Roman left because her legs did not seem to understand instructions. Blood had dried in the crease of her palm where the shard had cut her. It stung when she flexed her fingers. Ruth knelt with the dustpan. Her gray hair was twisted into a knot. She had worked in the Blackwell house for 27 years, long enough to see boys become monsters, and monsters learn table manners. Ava watched her sweep. "You knew," Ava said. Ruth's hand paused. The grandfather clock ticked in the corner. Ava's voice came out softer than she wanted. Everyone knew. Ruth did not look up. "Mrs. Blackwell." "Don't call me that." Ruth's eyes lifted then. Ava had never seen pity sit so carefully on someone's face. "Ava," Ruth said. The sound of her real name almost broke her. Ava wrapped her bleeding hand in a white napkin and pressed hard. How long Ruth looked toward the dining room doors. 2 guards stood beyond them. Ava could see the shadows of their shoes beneath the gap. "Long enough," Ruth said. Ava laughed once. It was small and ugly. "Long enough to watch me try." Ruth's mouth tightened. "Long enough to know you deserved better than trying alone." That did it. Ava looked away before the tears could come. She refused to cry in that room. Not where Roman had sat drinking espresso while he cut the last thread tying her to hope. Ruth set the broom aside and came closer. "There are things your father left behind," she said quietly. Ava turned back. "What things?" Ruth lowered her voice until it almost disappeared beneath the clock. "Things Mr. Blackwell has been looking for since before the wedding." Ava went still. The mansion seemed to lean closer. "What are you talking about?" Ruth stepped to the sideboard and picked up the largest piece of the broken cup. She folded it into her handkerchief like a relic. "Your father had enemies. He had friends who were worse. Before he died, he called me to his study. He was already sick. He knew it. Maybe not the doctors, maybe not you, but he knew." Ava's heartbeat shifted. "My father spoke to you. He trusted me with one instruction." "What instruction?" Ruth's eyes moved again toward the door. Ava understood. She rose, crossed the room, and closed the dining room doors with a quiet click. The guards did not stop her. When she turned back, Ruth was waiting near the window where pale light fell across her black dress. "There is a safe behind the hunting painting in your father's study," Ruth said. Ava felt cold move through her body. "That painting is still there, because you would not let Roman remove it. He hated it." "I know." Ava remembered the argument, the only real argument she and Roman had ever had before that morning. 3 months after the wedding, he had ordered the staff to clear out Arthur's study. New desk, new shelves, new art. When the movers reached the hunting painting, Ava stepped in front of it. "No," she said. Roman had looked up from his phone. "It does not belong in this house. It was my father's. That is exactly why." She had stood there shaking, terrified and furious. "It stays." The room had gone silent. Roman stared at her for so long she thought he might throw the painting into the fireplace himself. Then he looked at the movers. "Leave it." Ava had thought she won because he did not care enough to fight. Now she wondered if some ghost of her father had been holding the wall in place. Ruth touched Ava's arm. "Your father said you would know the code." "I don't. He said your mother's birthday." Ava closed her eyes. June 18th, 1977. The date on every official document. The date engraved beneath Lillian Monroe's name at the cemetery. The date Arthur toasted every year with a glass of red wine he never drank. But there was another date. Ava had been 9 when her mother told her. They were sitting on the bathroom floor during a thunderstorm because Ava was afraid of lightning. Lillian had wrapped her in a towel warm from the dryer and whispered stories to drown out the sky. "A woman like me gets 2 birthdays," Lillian said, smoothing wet hair from Ava's forehead. "Why one is the day the world says you arrived, the other is the day you choose to survive." Ava had not understood. Her mother had smiled sadly. September 3rd. Remember that for me, little bird. Not because it matters now, because one day it might. Ava opened her eyes. Ruth was watching her. "You know which one?" Ruth said. Ava did. Her throat felt tight. "What is in the safe?" Ruth folded her hands in front of her. "Freedom," she said. "Or death. Men like your father rarely knew the difference." Ava looked toward the hallway that led to Arthur's old study. The house had never felt so alive. Cameras in the corners, floorboards under the rugs, pipes in the walls, guards breathing behind doors. Roman's world pressed around her, polished and patient. "When did Roman search the study?" Ava asked. "When you were out. Charity lunches, doctor appointments, the museum board meeting in May." Ava remembered those days, returning home to find a book slightly crooked, a drawer closed too neatly, a paperweight moved 1 inch from where she had left it. She had thought she was imagining things. Roman had been searching the bones of her father's life while she learned how to be lonely in his house. Ruth touched her shoulder once. "You must be careful today." Ava looked down at the blood seeping through the napkin around her palm. "Careful is what got me here." Ruth did not argue. Ava went upstairs first. She did not know why. Maybe because some part of her still needed to see the room before she became a woman capable of opening hidden safes. The master bedroom was immaculate. The bed had been made by hands that were not hers. The curtains were open. Lake Michigan lay gray and endless beyond the windows. Ava stood in front of the mirror. Her face looked expensive and exhausted. Dark hair pinned too neatly. Pearl earrings, cream dress, a blood-stained napkin wrapped around her hand, a diamond ring heavy on her finger. She looked like a woman preserved in glass. "Who are you?" she whispered. The mirror did not answer. She removed the pearl earrings first, then the necklace, then the ring. It resisted for a second at her knuckle as if her own body had become loyal to the lie. She twisted gently until it slid free. 4 carats, flawless, cold. Roman had chosen it himself. Ruth once told her he spent 20 minutes looking at stones before selecting the cleanest one. Ava had touched that detail for months, turning it over in her mind whenever he was cruel. 20 minutes meant something. Choice meant something. Now she understood. Roman knew how to select beautiful things. That did not mean he knew how to love them. She placed the ring on the nightstand. Her finger looked naked, pale where the band had been. She changed out of the cream dress and into dark jeans, a black sweater, and flat boots. Practical clothes. Invisible clothes. Clothes Roman had never bought for her. Then she went to her father's study. The room sat at the end of the west corridor, far from Roman's office, far from the main staircase. Dust floated in the winter light. Arthur's desk remained where it had always been, though Roman had emptied most of the drawers months ago. The leather chair was cracked at one arm. The shelves smelled faintly of tobacco, and above the fireplace hung the painting. A fox hunt in autumn. Red coats, brown horses, pale sky. Men chasing something small and terrified through a field. Roman had hated it. Ava stared at it now and hated it too. She gripped the frame with both hands and lifted. It was heavier than she expected. The painting came away from the wall with a soft scrape. Behind it, set flush into the plaster, was a small steel safe. For a moment, Ava simply looked at it. Her father had sat in this room for years with that thing behind him smiling, lying, loving her, shaping her life with one hand while hiding the truth with the other. She touched the dial. Her fingers were steady. June 18th, 1977. Nothing. She closed her eyes. September 3rd. The safe clicked open. The sound was small. The room changed anyway. Inside was a thick manila envelope yellowed at the edges, a black leather ledger, a flash drive taped to the inside wall, several old photographs bound with a rubber band. On top of everything sat a letter with her name written in her father's hand. Ava. Not little bird, not sweetheart, just Ava. She sank into the chair and opened it. My Ava. If you are reading this, then I am gone, and Roman Blackwell has finally shown you enough of himself that Ruth believed it was time. Forgive me. There are no clean ways to say what I must say. I gave you to Roman because I believed he was the only man dangerous enough to keep you alive after my death. The men who smiled at your funeral would have divided you like property if I had left you unprotected. Roman was a wall. Cold, yes. Cruel, perhaps. But walls do not need tenderness to stop bullets. Ava pressed the paper to the desk as the words blurred. Her father knew. He knew Roman would not love her. He gave her anyway. She kept reading. I did not give you to him empty-handed. In this safe is the part of my life I kept hidden from everyone, including you. Roots, payments, accounts, names, proof. Some of it belongs to me. Some of it belongs to the Blackwells. Some of it belongs to men who sit in courtrooms, churches, and offices, pretending they have never seen blood. Do not try to be brave in the way men taught you bravery. Do not stand in front of fire to prove you can burn. Use what I left you to leave. Use it to buy distance, silent safety. Do not try to destroy Roman. He will win that fight, unless he chooses not to. I loved you as well as a man like me could. That may not have been enough. I am sorry if the truth finds you after I am no longer there to soften it. Papa. Ava sat without moving. The letter did not feel like love. It felt like a confession wearing love's clothes. She wanted to tear it in half. She wanted to hold it to her chest. She wanted to be 11 years old again, running down the hallway toward her father's open arms before she knew that powerful men could make cages out of protection and call the bars devotion. She folded the letter carefully. Then she opened the ledger. The first page was a list of names. Not all of them criminal. That made it worse. Judges, police captains, 2 state senators, a federal prosecutor, a bishop, union officers, port officials, bankers, men Ava had seen at dinners, men who had kissed her hand, men who had told her she had her mother's eyes. Beside each name were dates, amounts, initials, coded roots. Ava turned the pages slowly. The room became colder with each one. Her father's handwriting was neat and precise. No emotion, no hesitation. Lives reduced to lines. Loyalty measured in dollars. Death filed between wire transfers and shipping schedules. Then she saw it. Thomas Blackwell, payment authorized. $3.2 million, October 2019. The page seemed to tilt. Thomas Blackwell had been Roman's father. Ava remembered the story. Everyone in Chicago knew it. The old Blackwell patriarch died in his sleep after a private dinner. Heart failure, natural causes. A king gone quietly in his bed. Roman never spoke of him. Only once, after too much bourbon on the anniversary of Thomas's death, Ava had found him standing alone in the garden without a coat. "Your father?" she asked softly. Roman looked at the frozen ground. "He taught me everything useful he said." "Did he love you?" Roman had laughed, but there was no humor in it. "He taught me everything useful." Now Ava stared at the entry and understood that Roman had built his empire on a grave her father paid to dig. If Roman saw this, the world would change. If Roman knew her father had murdered his, he would not see Ava as a wife. He would see blood debt. Her mouth went dry. She searched the page again, hoping she had misread it. Thomas Blackwell. Payment authorized. $3.2 million. October 2019. The ink did not change. Ava closed the ledger, then opened it again because some part of her wanted the truth to disappear and knew it would not. She found photographs next. Her father with Thomas Blackwell at a fundraiser, smiling. Her father with a younger Roman outside a courthouse. Roman could not have been more than 23, his face leaner, his eyes already guarded. Her mother Lillian standing beside a man Ava did not know. Silver-haired, elegant. His hand hovered near Lillian's elbow, close, but not touching. On the back of the photograph, her mother had written 2 words. Malcolm knows. Ava turned the photo over. Malcolm knows what the flash drive sat in her palm like a small black tooth. She did not plug it into anything. Not in this house. Not on Roman's network. Not while his cameras blinked red in corners and his men carried guns 20 feet from the door. She put the ledger letter photographs and flash drive back into the envelope. Then she checked the clock on the mantel. 11:47 a.m. The noon shift change. 12 minutes. Her body moved before fear could finish speaking. She returned the painting to the wall, though it hung slightly crooked now. She did not care. She carried the envelope close against her ribs and walked fast, not running down the hall. In the bedroom, she pulled a small leather travel bag from the back of the closet. She packed 1 pair of jeans, 2 shirts, underwear, a dark coat, her passport, and the emergency cash she had hidden months ago in a tampon box under the bathroom sink. $5,000 in hundreds. She had skimmed it from household money without admitting why. Now she knew why. She added her mother's locket, the silver chain worn thin from years of touching, and a photograph of Lillian holding Ava as a baby. Then she stopped at the nightstand. The ring sat where she had left it. Beside it lay Roman's empty side of the bed, untouched, smooth as water that had never known a body. Ava took a sheet of Blackwell stationery from the drawer. Cream paper. Her married name embossed at the top in black ink. Mrs. Roman Blackwell. She stared at the name until it blurred. Then she wrote 3 words. You were right. She folded the paper once and placed it beside the ring. Not because Roman deserved a note, because she wanted him to see the shape of what he had made. Downstairs, the mansion hummed with ordinary life. A vacuum somewhere in the guest wing. A guard speaking quietly into a radio. Pans clinking in the kitchen. The house had no idea its foundation had cracked. Ruth waited by the servant's entrance with a plain black wool coat and a gray scarf. Her face changed when she saw the bag. You found it. Ava nodded. Ruth looked at the envelope. Do not tell me what is inside. You already know enough. I know enough to be afraid. Ava slid into the coat. It smelled faintly of lavender and starch. Ruth wrapped the scarf around Ava's hair with hands that trembled only once. No phone, Ruth said. I know. No cards. I know. No main roads if you can help it. No hotels in your name. No hospitals unless you are dying, and even then think twice. Ava tried to smile. It failed. Ruth reached into her pocket and took out a small silver cross on a thin chain. Ava's breath caught. My mother's. She gave it to me the night you were born, Ruth said. She was very tired, very pale. Your father had gone downstairs to make calls. She put this in my hand and said if my daughter ever has to run from powerful men, give her this and tell her I was never as weak as they thought. Ava closed her fingers around the cross. For one wild moment, grief rose in her so fast she nearly dropped the bag. Her mother had known. Maybe not everything, but enough. enough to leave behind a chain of women waiting in the walls. Ava stepped forward and hugged Ruth. The older woman held her tight, only for a second. Then Ruth pulled away. "If they ask me, I will lie as long as I can." Ava looked at her. Why, Ruth's face hardened. "Because I have spent too many years cleaning up after men who call cruelty order." A noise sounded beyond the kitchen, a guard laughing into his phone. Ruth touched Ava's cheek. "Go." Ava opened the servant's door. Cold air rushed in. The garden stretched before her, white with snow, cut by black hedges and narrow paths. Beyond it, 30 yards away, the east service gate waited between two stone pillars. Ava stepped outside. The door closed behind her with a soft final click, and for one suspended second, Ava stood outside the Blackwell mansion as if the cold had reached into her chest and gripped her heart. The garden was white with snow. The hedges were trimmed into perfect walls. The stone path curved past the fountain, past the winter roses Roman's mother had planted years before, past the little bronze statue of an angel Ava had once thought looked lonely. Everything was quiet. Too quiet. The kind of quiet that made every breath feel criminal. Ava pulled Ruth's scarf lower over her hair and tightened her fingers around the leather bag. The envelope was inside, pressed between two folded shirts, but she could feel its weight as if it were strapped to her ribs. Her father's letter, his ledger, the flash drive, the photographs. Enough truth to make powerful men beg, kill, or vanish. She walked, not too fast. That was the first rule she gave herself. A woman running drew eyes. A woman walking with purpose belonged wherever she was going. Gravel crunched beneath her boots. Her breath came out in thin white clouds. Somewhere near the garage, two men laughed about a basketball game. One of them mentioned the Bulls and cursed under his breath. Ordinary words. Ordinary voices. Ava kept moving. The east service gate stood 30 yards away. She had watched it for months from the upstairs windows, pretending she liked the way the morning light hit the iron bars. The guards changed at noon. The old shift left early. The new shift arrived late. 12 minutes of careless space inside a house where Roman Blackwell believed nothing happened unless he allowed it. Ava reached the gate. Her hand hovered over the latch. For a moment she could not make herself touch it. The mansion loomed behind her. White stone black windows, a roofline sharp against the gray sky. 11 months ago, she had entered through the front gates in a wedding dress with cameras flashing and old men smiling like they had just witnessed a merger instead of a marriage. She had been frightened that day, but also foolish enough to hope. Now she carried her own escape in a borrowed coat. Her hand closed around the latch. The metal was freezing. The gate opened with a faint complaint. Ava stepped through. Nothing happened. No alarm, no shouting. No gun drawn from behind the hedges. Just the street. Just winter air. Just a yellow cab waiting half a block away with its engine running and exhaust curling behind it like smoke from a prayer. Ava did not look back until she reached the curb. When she did, the gate was already swinging closed. She watched the bars slide into place and felt something inside her do the opposite. The cab driver did not get out. He did not wave. He simply watched her in the rearview mirror as she opened the back door and climbed in. He was older, maybe in his early 60s, with deep brown skin, silver at his temples, and tired eyes that had seen too many stories begin in the back seat of a car. A small wooden cross hung from the mirror. His wedding ring clicked softly against the steering wheel as he shifted into drive. "Where to, ma'am?" Ava looked through the rear window. The Blackwell gates shrank behind her. Her mouth opened, but no address came. She had planned the leaving. She had not planned the arriving. "North," she said. The driver glanced at her in the mirror. "North is a direction. Today it's enough." He studied her face for one heartbeat longer than a polite man should have. Then he nodded and pulled away from the curb. The neighborhood slipped past in clean white lawns and iron fences. Mansions sat back from the road behind gates and cameras, each one polished enough to hide whatever happened inside. Ava pressed her cut hand against her lap. The napkin was gone now, left somewhere inside the house, and the blood had dried dark across her palm. The driver noticed. "You hurt, no?" That was not the question. Ava almost smiled, but it came out wrong. "I'm not bleeding anymore. That is not always the same as not being hurt." She looked at him then. His eyes returned to the road. "What's your name?" she asked. "Eddie Walker." "Ava." The name escaped before she could stop it. Eddie's eyes flicked up. "Just Ava. Today." "Yes." He accepted that. They drove in silence until the mansion district gave way to denser streets, brick buildings, gas stations, traffic lights, Chicago waking up beneath a low winter sky. Ava watched people carrying coffee, arguing into phones, walking dogs, scraping ice off windshields. Normal people. People with normal problems. For a moment she wanted to roll down the window and ask one of them how it felt to live inside a life that did not require strategy to cross a driveway. Then her phone buzzed in her coat pocket. The sound hit her like a gunshot. Ava pulled it out. No message, no call, just the screen lighting up as the network searched and connected and betrayed her. Roman had bought that phone. Roman's security team had set it up. Roman's men could find it before she crossed the next intersection. Ruth's voice returned. "No phone." Ava lowered the window. Cold air slapped her face. Eddie looked back. Ma'am. Ava threw the phone into the street. It hit the pavement, bounced. Once slid under the tire of a passing delivery truck and shattered. Eddie raised his eyebrows. "That kind of day." "I don't want to be found." "By your husband." Ava did not answer. That was answer enough. Eddie drove another block before speaking again. "Is he dangerous?" Ava watched the broken phone disappear behind them. "Yes. How dangerous." "You have lived in Chicago long enough to know the name." Blackwell. Eddie's hands tightened around the wheel. For the first time, fear moved across his face. Then something harder replaced it. "I know the name. I married it." He exhaled slowly. "Lord have mercy. He won't." Eddie reached beneath his seat with one hand and pulled out an old flip phone. The plastic was scratched. The hinge looked weak. He held it back without taking his eyes from the road. "Prepaid. No name on it. I keep it for emergencies." Ava stared at the phone. "Why would you give this to me?" "My sister ran from a man once," Eddie said. His voice changed. It did not break, but it came close enough that Ava heard the old wound under the words. "She called me from a payphone outside Gary. I was working a night shift. I told her I would come after I finished. I told myself 30 minutes did not matter." He swallowed. "They found her 3 days later in a drainage ditch." Ava's throat tightened. Eddie kept his gaze on the road. "So today I don't finish the shift." Ava took the phone. "Thank you." "Thank me if we get you somewhere safe." Across the city, Roman Blackwell was laughing. It was a rare sound, and because of that, every man at the table noticed. The private room at Bellamy's Steakhouse was warm with money. Dark wood panels, heavy curtains, crystal glasses. A waiter who knew when to vanish. Roman sat at the head of the table with Franklin Hayes across from him. A heavy-set man with silver hair, soft hands, and eyes that had never forgotten a slight. Franklin had been telling a story about his grandson trying to pay for ice cream with his grandmother's diamond bracelet. The men laughed because Franklin laughed. Roman laughed because the meeting was going better than expected. A truce, 2 years in the making, sat close enough to touch. Then Roman's phone vibrated on the table. He glanced down. Ruth Callahan. The laugh died before it finished leaving his mouth. Ruth never called him. Not directly. Not once in 11 months. She moved through his house like a shadow with rules communicating through notes, staff, and silence. If Ruth Callahan was calling Roman Blackwell during a meeting, something inside his house had gone wrong. He stood. "Excuse me." Franklin paused with a cigar halfway to his mouth. Roman walked to the corner near the window and answered. What Ruth's voice was low, tight. "Mr. Blackwell, I am sorry to disturb you." His body went still. "Where is my wife?" There was a silence. "Too long. I went to bring her lunch," Ruth said. "She is not in her room." Roman looked out at the street below. Cars moved through dirty snow. People crossed at the light. The whole city kept breathing as if nothing had changed. "Then look somewhere else." "I have. The library, the garden, her father's study." Her father's study. Roman closed his eyes. "Say that again." "She is not in the house." "When did you last see her?" "After breakfast." "What was she wearing?" "A cream dress." "Does she have a bag?" Another pause. Roman's voice dropped. "Ruth, I will check." He heard movement, footsteps, a door opening, hangers pushed aside. Then Ruth came back quieter. "Her travel bag is gone. Her passport, too." Roman pressed one hand flat against the wall. "Call the gate." "I already did." No one left through the main gate, the east gate. It was shift change. "I know when it is shift change." "I am sorry, Mr. Blackwell." Roman opened his eyes. Franklin Hayes was watching him from across the room. So were the others. Men like them understood when the temperature changed. Ruth Roman said, "Listen carefully. You will tell no one else. If Ava comes back, you tell her I love her, and I am on my way home." A soft breath came through the phone. Roman heard the judgment in it before she spoke. "Yes, sir." He hung up. For 10 seconds he stood with the phone in his hand and forced himself to breathe. In through the nose, out through the mouth. A lesson from his father. Control the body, control the room. Control the room, control the outcome. But this was not a room. This was Ava. He returned to the table. "Gentlemen, a family matter." Franklin smiled with no warmth. "Anything serious?" Roman buttoned his jacket. "It depends on how fast I solve it." He left before anyone could ask another question. By the time Roman reached the mansion, his men had already sensed the shift. They stood straighter, spoke less, moved faster. Fear traveled well in a house built by men who understood consequences. Roman went directly to Ava's bedroom. He knew before he reached the nightstand. The air was wrong. Her perfume had already started fading, though that was impossible. Jasmine and something clean, something soft that never belonged in his world no matter how often she wore it in his house. Then he saw the ring, 4 carats, flawless, cold. Beside it lay the folded paper. He opened it. "You were right." 3 words. Roman read them once, then again, then a third time, as if repetition could change the sentence into something less final. It did not. His hand closed around the ring. For a moment a memory struck him so hard he almost sat down. Ava, in the kitchen 4 months earlier, wearing one of his white dress shirts, sleeves rolled badly at the wrists. She had not known he was standing in the doorway. She had been making coffee, smiling to herself as steam rose around her face. He had wanted to walk in. He had wanted to say good morning. He had wanted to touch the back of her neck and find out if she would lean into him. Instead, he had taken a picture and left. "Coward," some voice inside him said. He pushed it down. Vince Roman called. His second-in-command appeared in the doorway less than 5 seconds later. Vince Carter was broad, clean-shaven, and loyal in the way only dangerous men could be loyal. He took in the room, the open closet, Roman's fist around the ring. "She's gone," Vince said. Roman looked at him. Vince lowered his eyes. "The study," Roman said. "Behind the hunting painting. Check the safe." Vince did not ask what safe. He ran. Roman stayed in the bedroom and stared at the note. Ava had left the ring. Ava, who had kept wearing it after every cold dinner, every untouched good night, every public hand on her back that became nothing in private. She had never removed it in anger. Not once. That meant she had not run to make him chase her. She had run because she was finished being found. Vince returned breathless. "The safe is open." Roman did not move. Empty. Completely. The room seemed to tilt. Roman looked toward the window. The lake beyond the glass was iron gray. There was a ledger, he said. Black leather. Vince went pale. Arthur Monroe's, Roman's eyes cut to him. Vince understood his mistake too late. "You knew rumors," Vince said carefully. "Old ones. Nobody ever found it." She did. Roman walked past him into the hall. Every road north, every train station, every airport, every cab company within 20 miles. Pull traffic cameras near the east gate. I want the driver, the plate, the direction, all of it. "Yes, boss." Roman stopped. And Vince. "Yes, no one touches her." Vince hesitated. "If she has the ledger, every family in the city is going to want her. Then they can want from a distance." "Roman." Roman turned fully. The use of his first name was rare enough to be dangerous. Vince swallowed. "She is not just your wife anymore. She is evidence with a pulse." Roman stepped closer. "She is my wife before she is anything else. You told her she wasn't." The silence hit like a fist. Vince realized he had gone too far. Roman's voice went quiet. "Find her." Vince nodded once and left. Roman stood alone in the hallway with Ava's ring burning cold in his palm. At the motel north of Milwaukee, Ava paid cash for a room under the name Anna Lane. The woman at the desk did not look up from her crossword puzzle. "Room 14. Ice machine's broken. Don't smoke unless you want me to keep the deposit." "I won't." The woman slid over a key attached to a plastic tag. Ava walked across the parking lot with her head down. The sky had darkened early. Snow drifted sideways under the lights. Room 14 sat near the back beside a vending machine that hummed like a dying insect. Inside, the room smelled like bleach and old carpet. Ava locked the door. Then the chain. Then she shoved the dresser in front of it with both hands scraping the floor, breathing hard by the time it blocked the entrance. It would not stop Roman's men if they came. But it would make noise. Noise mattered. She sat on the edge of the bed. For the first time since leaving the house, she let herself shake. Not for long. The envelope waited on the bedspread. She opened it again. The ledger looked harmless in the yellow light. A black book. Worn corners. Her father's neat handwriting inside. But Ava knew better now. Some weapons did not shine. Some weapons smelled like paper and dust. She turned pages until her eyes blurred. Names she knew. Names she wished she did not. Payments for silence. Payments for votes. Payments for bodies moved from one place to another. Shipping routes through the lake. Storage units. Shell companies. Judges marked with initials. Police officers marked with stars. Then she found her mother. Lillian Monroe. Removal arranged. 1.8 million. July 2003. Ava stopped breathing. She read it again and again. Her mother had died in August. Cancer, Arthur had said. A rare kind. Fast and cruel. He had sat on Ava's bed with tears in his eyes and told her that he had tried everything. He had held her while she cried into his shirt. He had let her believe the world had taken Lillian because the world was unfair. But the ledger said otherwise. Removal arranged. The phrase was so clean, Ava wanted to vomit. Her father had not lost his wife. He had paid to erase her. Ava closed the book and pressed both hands over her mouth. The room swayed. The walls seemed too close. The heater rattled under the window. She waited for grief. Rage arrived first. It entered quietly. No scream, no broken lamp, no dramatic collapse. Just a cold, clear flame rising behind her ribs. All her life, men had handed her stories and expected her to live inside them. Your mother was sick. Your father protected you. Roman married you to keep you safe. I never loved you. Ava looked at the ledger. No more, she whispered. The burner phone buzzed. She nearly dropped it. Only one person had the number. She answered. Eddie, you inside? Yes. Good. Listen to me. A black Escalade passed the motel twice. Slow, like they were counting plates. Ava stood. When 5 minutes ago, I circled back after dropping you. Her hand tightened around the phone. Are they still there? Not in the lot. But that does not mean gone. Ava went to the window and moved the curtain 1 inch. A truck idled near the edge of the property. A man smoked under the orange light. He did not look at her room. That made it worse. I cannot stay here, she said. No. Where do I go? My cousin Hank has a farm outside La Crosse. No cameras, no neighbors close enough to care. He raises pigs and hates conversation. Ava closed her eyes. She did not know Eddie. Not really. She had known him less than a day. The phone, the story about his sister, the kindness in his voice, all of it could still be a trap. Roman owned people. He bought loyalty the way other men bought suits. But the Escalade was real. The ledger was real. The dresser against the door was not enough. What time, she asked. Midnight. Back of the motel. Pack light. If you see headlights flash twice, that is me. And if I see anything else, do not open the door. The line went quiet. Then Eddie spoke again, softer. Ava. Yes. Whatever is in that bag, do not let it make you forget you are the thing worth saving. Ava looked at the ledger on the bed. For 1 second, she almost cried. I'll be ready. She hung up. Then she packed the envelope back into the bag, tightened her coat around her body, and turned off every light in the room except the bathroom, leaving the door cracked so the glow made it look like someone was still inside. At 11:53 p.m., headlights flashed twice through the curtain. Ava moved the dresser just enough to slip out. The parking lot was slick with ice. Eddie's cab waited near the back fence, engine running lights off now. His face looked tense in the dashboard glow. Get in, he said. Fast. She climbed in and shut the door. Before she could speak, a black Escalade rolled slowly past the motel entrance. Eddie lowered in his seat. Ava stopped breathing. The SUV paused under the sign. Then it kept moving. Eddie shifted into drive. He did not take the main road. He cut behind the motel through a narrow service lane half buried in snow past dumpsters and a frozen drainage ditch, then onto a county road with no lights. Ava looked back until the motel disappeared. Her hands were locked around the bag. You all right? Eddie asked. No. Good. Honest is useful. They drove into the dark. Fields opened around them wide and colorless beneath the moon. The city lights faded. The road narrowed. Ava could see Eddie's wedding ring every time his hand moved over the wheel. Does your wife know where you are? She asked. She knows I drive a cab. That is not what I asked. No, Eddie said. She does not. I am sorry. My wife would be angrier if I left you there. Ava turned toward the window. For the first time all day, the silence beside her did not feel like punishment. It felt like distance. Like the world between her and Roman was growing mile by mile, field by field, breath by breath. But somewhere behind that distance, Roman Blackwell was awake. She knew it. She could feel him like weather. Back in Chicago, Roman stood in the dark dining room, where the broken pieces of her mother's cup still glinted under the sideboard. Vince had called with the first report. Camera at the east gate. Ava in a dark coat and scarf, a bag over her shoulder, a yellow cab on Sheridan Road. Plate registered to Eddie Walker, 62, married, no criminal record, no known ties to the Blackwells or the Monroe network. Roman listened without interrupting. She ditched her phone on Lakeshore Drive, Vince said. We found the pieces. Roman looked at the empty chair across from him. The chair Ava had sat in that morning. She knew, he said. She knew what I would do. Vince said nothing. Roman picked up the largest remaining shard of the coffee cup from the table where Ruth had placed it. The gold rim cut into his thumb. He welcomed the sting. She watched everything, Roman said. For 11 months she watched everything, and I thought she was just quiet. Vince waited. Roman closed his hand around the porcelain. Find Eddie Walker. Yes, boss, but do not touch his family. Vince paused. Understood. Roman ended the call. In the back of Eddie's cab, Ava rested her forehead against the cold window and watched the dark countryside move past. She had left the mansion. She had crossed the gate. She had survived the first day. That should have felt like victory. Instead, her father's handwriting burned behind her eyes. Lillian Monroe. Removal arranged. Ava touched her mother's silver cross beneath her sweater. The metal was warm now from her skin. The road bent north and Eddie drove without speaking, carrying her toward a farm she had never seen toward strangers. She had no choice but to trust. While behind her, the city began to close its fist around the space where she used to be. By the time Eddie turned off the county road, the sky had gone black and the snow had turned the world into a place without edges. Ava had stopped asking how much farther. Distance had become meaningless. Every mile away from Chicago carried her deeper into a life she did not recognize, and every minute inside Eddie's cab made the mansion feel less like a home and more like a fever she had finally survived. The road narrowed between frozen fields. Bare trees leaned over the ditch lines. Farmhouses appeared and disappeared behind curtains of snow, each one glowing with small square windows where other people were eating dinner, watching television, putting children to bed, living lives that did not require hidden ledgers or escape routes. Eddie slowed near a rusted mailbox shaped like a pig. Here, he said. Ava looked out. The farmhouse sat at the end of a long gravel drive, crooked and stubborn under a sagging roof. A yellow porch light burned above the front door. Beyond the house, low barns crouched in the dark, and the smell of animals drifted through the heater vents before the cab had even stopped. A large man stood on the porch in a flannel coat holding a shotgun in one hand and a coffee mug in the other. Ava stared. Eddie sighed. That is Hank. He is pointing a gun at us. That is how Hank says hello. Eddie pulled up beside the porch and shut off the engine. For a moment, neither of them moved. Then Eddie turned around. You do not have to tell him your name. You do not have to tell him mine if anyone asks. You do not have to tell him anything except whether you want coffee. Ava's fingers tightened around the bag. Can I trust him? Eddie looked toward the porch. No man deserves trust just because another man says so. But Hank loved my sister. Not the way a husband loves a wife. The way a decent man loves a person who deserved better. When she died, he sat on my porch for 2 days and did not say a word. Then he built her a bench under the maple tree she liked. Ava looked at the man on the porch again. He looks terrifying. He is. Mostly to raccoons. Despite herself, Ava almost smiled. The porch boards groaned as Hank came down the steps. He was short, wide, bald, and built like something that had survived several hard winters out of spite. His beard grew in several directions at once. His eyes were pale blue and sharp under heavy brows. He opened Ava's door without asking. "You the trouble?" Ava blinked. Eddie got out of the cab. "She is a friend." Hank looked at Ava's bag, then at her face, then at the scarf wrapped too tightly around her hair. "Friend looks like she has not slept since Easter." "It has been a long day," Ava said. Hank grunted. "All days are long when fools with money are involved." Ava's mouth parted. Eddie shut his door and gave Hank a look. "What did you tell him?" "I told him enough," Hank said. "Woman running in the snow, men-looking bag in her hand. I may raise pigs, but I am not one." He stepped aside and pointed toward the house. "Inside." Rule 1. I do not know your real name. Rule 2. I do not know who is after you. Rule 3. If they come here, you duck low because my aim is fine. But my eyesight is not what it used to be. Ava climbed out slowly. The cold hit her legs. She almost stumbled, and Hank reached out with surprising gentleness, steadying her elbow without gripping it. Then he let go. "Coffee is bad," he said. "Food is worse. Bed is clean." "That sounds perfect," Ava said. Hank stared at her for half a second, then nodded like she had passed a test. Inside the farmhouse smelled like wood smoke, bacon grease, coffee, and old wallpaper. The kitchen was small and warm. A cast-iron stove ticked in the corner. Dishes dried beside the sink. A calendar from 3 years ago still hung on the wall. On the windowsill, a row of little ceramic pigs stared into the room with cheerful, dead eyes. Hank put the shotgun against the wall. Eddie noticed Ava looking. "Is it loaded?" she asked. Hank poured coffee into 3 chipped mugs. "Everything useful in this house is loaded." He slid a mug toward her. The coffee was bitter enough to feel medicinal. Ava drank it anyway. Eddie stood near the door, rubbing his hands together. "I have to get back before Nora wakes up and notices I am not in bed." Hank snorted. "Nora noticed 4 hours ago." Eddie winced. "She called you twice. First time she asked if I had seen you. Second time she asked if I owned a shovel." Ava looked between them. "I am sorry." Eddie shook his head. "Do not be. My wife would bury me deeper if I had left you at that motel." He reached into his coat and pulled out a folded paper with a number written on it. "This is Hank's landline. Use it only if the burner dies. Do not call my house unless the sky is falling." Ava took the paper. "Eddie." He stopped at the door. She wanted to say something large enough to cover what he had done. There were no words that size. "Your sister's name." His face changed. "Denise." Ava nodded. "I will remember her." Eddie looked away fast, as if the sentence had gone somewhere too tender. "Stay alive, Ava." Then he walked out into the snow. The cab headlights swept across the kitchen wall. A moment later, the engine faded down the drive. Hank locked the door behind him. For a while, neither he nor Ava spoke. Then he picked up her bag without asking and nodded toward the stairs. "Room is up there. Bathroom is across the hall. Water is cold because this house hates comfort. If you hear somebody moving around at 4, that is me feeding pigs. If you hear someone moving around before 4, stay behind the bed and do not scream until I shoot." Ava carried the coffee with both hands. "You talk about shooting very casually. I live alone with pigs. Conversation gets limited." He started toward the stairs, then stopped and looked back at her. "One more thing. Yes, if you have something in that bag that men would kill for, do not put it under the mattress. Everybody puts things under mattresses. Put it somewhere uglier." He continued up the stairs as if he had simply advised her about laundry. The guest room was barely larger than a closet. 1 iron bed, 1 chair, 1 small table, a crucifix on the wall, a window looking over black fields. The wallpaper had faded into a pattern of flowers that looked almost bruised in the lamplight. Hank set her bag on the bed and pointed to a loose floorboard beneath the table. Ugly enough. Then he left. Ava locked the door. She stood alone in the tiny room, listening to the wind press against the glass. For the first time in hours, no engine ran beneath her. No road moved under the wheels. No stranger held her life in his hands. She should have slept. Instead, she knelt open the bag and took out the envelope. The ledger lay in her lap like a sleeping animal. Ava opened it. The first pages she had already seen, but now she read differently. At the motel, fear had skimmed the surface. Here, surrounded by peeling wallpaper and the smell of smoke, she let the truth enter slowly enough to wound. Arthur Monroe had not simply paid men. He arranged systems, shipping routes through the Great Lakes, cash washed through nonprofit foundations, construction bids rigged before public hearings, police overtime contracts used to move people without records, judges marked with initials, priests marked with crosses, men in public service whose loyalty had been purchased in envelopes, campaign donations, private photographs, or quiet threats involving their children. Her father's handwriting remained neat through all of it. That was what made Ava sick. No rage in the ink, no panic, no remorse. Just tidy lines from a man who had balanced murder with the same pen he used to sign birthday cards. She turned another page. Thomas Blackwell appeared again. Not a full entry this time. A note. Thomas suspected betrayal. Dinner confirmed. Removal before succession complete. R.B. uninformed. Ava read the initials twice. R.B. Roman Blackwell. Uninformed. She set her hand over the page. Roman had not known. The ledger said it plainly. Her father had helped kill Roman's father and left Roman in the dark, then, years later, handed Ava to him like a peace offering wrapped in white silk. Ava hated Roman. She did. She hated the cold breakfasts, the separate bedrooms. The way he looked through her when looking at her would have cost him too much. She hated the sentence he had said that morning. "I never loved you, Ava." She hated that it still echoed in her body like a bell that would not stop ringing. But this page did something cruel. It separated his sins from her father's. Roman had broken her heart. Arthur had built the machine that ground everyone inside it. Ava kept reading. Near the middle of the ledger, she found a section marked only with her mother's initials. L.M. There were fewer entries, but each one carried a weight that made Ava's hands colder. L.M. met with M.R. Possible transfer of records. L.M. requested passports for herself and child. L.M. intercepted near Palermo contact. Removal arranged. 1.8 million. July 2003. Ava stared at the words until the room blurred. Her mother had tried to leave. Not just leave Arthur. Leave with Ava. Lillian had known enough to run. She had planned it. She had reached out to someone marked M.R., and Ava knew before she checked the photograph. Malcolm Reed, the silver-haired man beside her mother. Malcolm knows. Her mother had almost saved them both. Arthur stopped her. Ava covered her mouth with both hands, but no sound came. The grief was too deep for noise. She saw flashes from childhood, bright and cruel. Lillian kneeling to tie Ava's red shoes. Lillian singing under her breath while making soup. Lillian telling Ava during a thunderstorm that a woman sometimes gets 2 birthdays. Lillian kissing her forehead and saying, "If you ever feel afraid, little bird, count the exits first. Then count the people who love you. If the second number is smaller, run." Ava had forgotten that. Or maybe she had remembered it too late. She rose from the bed and went to the window. The glass reflected a woman with tangled hair, hollow eyes, and a silver cross against her throat. Not the polished wife from the mansion. Not Arthur Monroe's sheltered daughter. Not Roman Blackwell's silent ornament. A witness. a daughter, a woman holding a map of every man who thought the world belonged to him. "Okay," she whispered. The word fogged the glass, then again stronger. "Okay." She returned to the table and found a pencil in the drawer dull at the tip. On the back of an old feed receipt she began to write. Copy the ledger. Protect the original. Find Malcolm Reed. Find a journalist not in the book. Stay alive. She paused, then wrote another line. Do not become him. Her father. Roman. All of them. The line sat there, small and trembling under her hand. Then she wrote names. Arthur Monroe first, though he was already dead. Thomas Blackwell. Lillian Monroe. Roman Blackwell. She looked at Roman's name for a long time. Then she drew a slow circle around it. Not because he was first, because he was unfinished. In Chicago, Roman had not moved from Ava's bedroom for nearly an hour. The house around him was alive with searches. Vince had men pulling traffic footage, calling cab companies, checking train terminals, scanning airport cameras, leaning on contacts who knew better than to let the phone ring twice. Roman heard all of it through the walls. Orders, footsteps, doors opening, cars leaving. He stood in the center of Ava's room with her ring in his palm and realized he did not know the woman who had lived there. Not really. He knew her perfume, her public smile, the way she took tea at night, the fact that she hated olives and pretended not to because his mother once served them at dinner. He knew she read in bed when she could not sleep. He knew she touched her mother's locket when nervous. He knew she looked at Lake Michigan every morning like she was asking it a question. But he had not asked, not once. He opened her closet because he needed to do something with his hands before he broke the room apart. Her dresses hung in soft rows, black for charity dinners, navy for church, green silk for the Port Authority gala, where Franklin Hayes had stared too long and Roman had almost broken his fingers for it. A white summer dress she had worn once in the garden, laughing with Ruth over something Roman could not hear from his office window. He had watched her that day for almost 10 minutes, then closed the blinds. At the back of the closet, behind a stack of shoeboxes, he found a small wooden box. It was not locked. Inside were letters, dozens of them, all addressed to him. Roman sat on the closet floor. The first was dated 2 weeks after the wedding. Roman. You did not come home for dinner tonight. Ruth said business ran late. I saved your plate anyway, which feels silly now that I'm writing it. Maybe someday when this is easier, I will show you this letter and we will laugh about how strange we were at the beginning. Ava. Roman swallowed. He opened the next. Roman. Your mother asked me today if you were kind to me. I said yes because she looked tired and because I wanted it to be true. You stood across the room speaking to Vince, and I thought if he looked at me right now, really looked, I might forgive the whole week. You did not look. A. The letters continued. They became shorter as the months passed. Roman once held your hand at the cemetery today. You let me. For 1 minute I thought there was a door somewhere inside you. I am embarrassed by how little hope I need. Ava. Another. Roman. I heard you come home at 2 in the morning. I almost opened my door. I did not. I think I am learning. Another. Roman. I wore the blue dress because you once said blue suited me. You did not remember saying it. Maybe you never did. Maybe I invented it because I needed something. The last letter was dated 3 weeks ago. Roman, I do not think you are ever going to love me. I think I have been waiting outside a locked room, mistaking the light under the door for an invitation. I am trying to figure out how to leave without hating myself for staying so long. Ava. Roman read the last sentence again. Then the letters slid from his hands onto the closet floor. He bowed his head. No one saw him. That was good. Roman Blackwell did not cry where men could see. His father had beaten that lesson into him before he was 12. Blackwell men did not beg. They did not soften. They did not bleed where enemies could smell it. They loved nothing that could be taken. They held everything at a distance and called the distance strength. Roman pressed both hands over his face. The first sound that came out of him did not sound human. He cried silently at first, then not silently enough. The grief broke through his chest in ugly waves, not only for Ava but for the man he had become while congratulating himself for surviving. He cried for every dinner he missed on purpose, every good morning he swallowed, every time she had stood close enough to touch and he had punished her for making him want to. When it passed, he was still sitting on the floor with Ava's letters scattered around him. His phone buzzed. Vince. Roman wiped his face with the heel of his hand and answered. What? We found the cab. Eddie Walker. He dropped her at a motel north of Milwaukee. We have men heading there. Roman stood so fast the wooden box tipped over. Do not send men in. They are already close. Call them back. Silence. Boss, call them back. Roman. If she is there with the ledger, we need to secure her before Hayes hears. Roman looked at the letter in his hand. I am trying to figure out how to leave. She is not a package, Roman said. Vince breathed once through his nose. She is carrying the end of us. Then maybe we should have built something that did not end in one woman's hands. Vince did not answer. Roman's voice hardened. Pull them back from the motel. Watch from a distance. No contact, no approach, no threats. And if someone else gets to her first, Roman closed his eyes. His father's voice rose in him. Take what is yours before another man does. He opened his eyes. She was never mine. That sentence cost him something. He heard it leave. Vince went quiet. I will pull them back, he said at last. Roman ended the call, then searched his contacts for a number he had not touched in 4 years. Claire Blackwell. His sister answered on the 7th ring. It is almost 4 a.m, she said. Someone better be dead. Roman looked at Ava's letters on the floor. My wife is gone. Claire said nothing. Then she laughed once, tired and bitter. Finally. The word struck harder because he deserved it. You knew, he said. Everyone knew Roman. She was vanishing in front of you for 11 months. You just mistook obedience for peace. He leaned against the closet wall. She has Arthur Monroe's ledger. That killed the anger in Claire's voice. Oh, God. You knew about it. I knew rumors. Dad feared Arthur. He never feared anyone, but he feared him. Roman looked toward the bedroom window. Arthur killed our father. Claire was silent for a long time. Then quietly, I wondered. Roman closed his eyes. I married his daughter. No, Claire said. You used his daughter. He did not defend himself. That was new. What do I do? Claire's voice softened, but not with mercy. For once, you choose the person instead of the empire. If she releases it, everything burns. Maybe it should. Claire. No. You called me because some part of you wants someone to say there is a clean way out. There is not. You can chase her like a Blackwell, or you can find her like a man who finally understands she has a right to run. Roman looked at the ring on the dresser. What if she will not forgive me? Then you live with that. The words sat between them. Claire continued. Go alone. No men, no guns, no orders. And when you find her, do not ask her to come back. Tell her the truth, then let her decide. Roman's throat tightened. What truth? Claire exhaled. The one you could not say at breakfast. He said nothing. She knew anyway. You love her. Roman closed his eyes. Yes. It was the first time he had said it. The word did not make him weaker. It made him late. Claire's voice was almost gentle now. Then be late honestly. She hung up. Roman stood in Ava's closet until dawn light touched the windows. Then he gathered her letters, placed them back in the wooden box in order, and carried the box downstairs. The dining room still smelled faintly of coffee. A shard of her mother's cup glittered beneath the sideboard where Ruth had missed it. Roman picked it up and set it beside Ava's ring. Then he called Vince again. "Stand everyone down. Everyone. Everyone. Boss Hayes has people moving. If they learn she has the ledger, let them move. And us." Roman looked at the ring. "I am going after her alone." Vince said his name, but Roman ended the call before the warning could become another chain around his throat. He went to the garage and chose the old gray sedan his father had kept under a shell company. A car so plain, no one looked at it twice. No driver, no guard, no weapon except the truth, and he had never trusted that less. As Roman pulled out into the morning snow, Ava sat in Hank Walker's upstairs room, folding the feed receipt into quarters and tucking it inside her coat. The ledger was hidden beneath the loose floorboard. Her mother's cross rested warm against her skin. Downstairs, pigs screamed for breakfast. Hank cursed at them like old friends, and the first pale light of Wisconsin entered through the window. Ava looked toward the north. Somewhere beyond the frozen fields, there was a man named Malcolm Reed who had known her mother's real story. Somewhere behind her, Roman Blackwell was no longer just a husband she had escaped. He was a question she had not finished answering. Ava did not have to go looking for the next road. By morning, the road came for her in the shape of Hank Walker standing in the doorway with 2 mugs of coffee and a face that had forgotten how to be gentle. He knocked once with his boot because both his hands were full. "Wake up if you are dead," he called. Ava opened the door with the ledger tucked beneath her sweater and a kitchen knife in her hand. Hank looked down at the knife, then at her. "That thing is for peeling apples." It was the sharpest one in the drawer. No, it was the cleanest one. Different thing. He handed her the coffee. She took it without smiling. Eddie called Hank's expression changed just enough. Ava felt it before he spoke. "Some men went to his house before dawn." Her fingers tightened around the mug. "Is he alive?" "Yes. So is Nora." She opened the door in a robe with pink curlers in her hair and told them if they were not selling Girl Scout cookies, they had 10 seconds to get off her porch. Ava closed her eyes. A breath came out of her body that she had not known she was holding. "They asked about you," Hank said. "What did she tell them?" "That Eddie drives a cab, not a confessional." Despite the fear, Ava almost laughed. Hank leaned one shoulder against the doorframe. "They did not look like police." "They are not. I figured. Police knock different. Men like that knock like the door already belongs to them." Ava looked toward the small window. Morning had turned the fields pale. The barns sat under snow. Pigs cried in the distance, angry at the hour the cold and whatever insult the world had offered them first. "How much time do I have?" "Less than you want. More than you deserve if we move now. Where Dale Mercer runs refrigerated trucks. Cheese meat produce sometimes whatever somebody pays him not to name. He leaves for Minnesota in an hour. There is room behind the pallets if you do not mind freezing and smelling like cheddar." Ava looked at the floorboard where she had hidden the ledger. "I need copies first." Hank blinked. "Copies. If I move with the only original and they catch me, it is over." He studied her for a moment. The rough humor faded out of his face. "You were raised around men who hid things." "Yes. And now you are learning fast." "No," Ava said quietly. "I learned a long time ago. I just did not know what the lessons were for." Hank nodded once. "There is a print shop in town. Owner owes me money and fears my pigs. That is a powerful combination. They drove in Hank's pickup as the sky brightened the ledger wrapped in a feed sack between Ava's boots. The truck smelled like mud tobacco and animal grain. Hank kept the radio low, an old country song about a woman leaving a man in Tennessee. Ava watched the road unroll through dirty snow and thought about how many songs men had written about women leaving, as if the leaving were the wound and not everything that came before it. The town was small enough to look asleep even after sunrise. A diner, a gas station, a church with a sign announcing forgiveness in black plastic letters. The print shop sat beside a laundromat, its windows fogged from the inside. The owner was a thin man named Carl, who wore suspenders and the frightened expression of someone who had made bad bets with the wrong farmer. Hank locked the door behind them. Carl looked from him to Ava. "Hank, I do not want trouble." "Then do not ask questions. That is usually how trouble starts." Ava set the ledger on the counter. "I need every page scanned to 2 drives and 1 printed copy." Carl stared at the book. "How many pages?" "Enough." He swallowed. "You people always say enough." Ava looked at him. "I am not you people." Something in her voice made Carl stop talking. The scanner hummed for 40 minutes. Each page passed under glass, each line of Arthur Monroe's careful handwriting becoming light, then data, then proof that could outlive a body. Ava stood beside the machine the entire time. Hank watched the street through the blinds with one hand inside his coat. When Carl finished, he handed Ava 2 flash drives and a thick stack of copied pages wrapped in brown paper. Ava paid cash. Hank did not let Carl count it. Outside, a dark SUV rolled past the laundromat. Slow. Hank's hand went to Ava's arm. Back door. They moved through the print shop kitchen, past a sink full of mugs into an alley where snow had turned gray beneath tire tracks. Hank opened the passenger door of the pickup, but Ava stopped. The SUV turned at the end of the block. "Hank." "I see it." He pushed her toward the truck. The engine coughed once before catching. Hank pulled out of the alley fast enough to make the tires slide, then cut through a church parking lot and onto a side road. Ava twisted in her seat. The SUV appeared behind them. Not close. Close enough. Hank grunted. "City boys." "Can you lose them?" "This is Wisconsin. Losing people is half of what roads are for." He turned onto a gravel lane between 2 frozen cornfields. The pickup bounced hard. Ava clutched the bag to her chest. Snow flew up behind them. The SUV followed, but slower, heavier, less familiar with the ruts. Hank took another turn without warning. The pickup shot between 2 barns, past a startled dog, and down a narrow service road lined with bare trees. Ava's shoulder hit the door. The bag nearly slipped. Hank did not apologize. At the next crossing, he cut the wheel and stopped behind an abandoned dairy shed, killing the engine and lights. Down. Ava folded herself beneath the dashboard. The SUV passed 30 seconds later, crawling along the road beyond the trees. The windows were black. Ava could not see who was inside. She heard only the slow crush of tires over ice. Then, it was gone. Hank waited a full minute before breathing like a normal man again. "They are getting faster," Ava said. "No," Hank said. "They are getting louder. Means they are scared too." He started the truck. By the time they reached the farm, Dale Mercer's refrigerated truck was already waiting beside the barn, engine grumbling, back doors open. Dale was tall, red-faced, and wrapped in a brown coat. He had the look of a man who had been born disappointed and planned to die the same way. He looked at Ava once, then at Hank. "No names," Good Hank said. "No crying. Reasonable. No vomiting on the cheese." Ava lifted her chin. "I will try not to offend the cheese." Dale almost smiled. Almost. Hank led her to the back of the truck. Inside, metal racks and white boxes filled most of the space. Cold air rolled out, carrying the sharp smell of dairy and diesel. "There's a gap behind the last stack," Hank said. "You sit there. Do not move when he stops. Do not speak unless Dale speaks first. If anyone opens the door, you become smaller than fear." Ava looked at him. "You have done this before." Hank's eyes shifted away. "People have needed roads before you." She held out her hand. He stared at it like she had offered him a bird. Then he took it. His palm was huge and rough. "Thank you," Ava said. He scowled. "Do not make it sentimental. I am a private man. You raise pigs named after presidents. They earned it." Ava stepped into the truck. The cold closed around her immediately. Hank handed her the bag, then the wrapped copies. "Original stays on your body. Copies in the bag. One drive in your boot if you are smart." Ava slid one flash drive inside her sock. Hank noticed and nodded. "You are smart. Not smart enough to avoid marrying Roman Blackwell. Smart enough to leave." That landed somewhere deeper than she expected. The doors closed. Darkness swallowed her. The truck lurched forward. Ava wedged herself behind the last stack of boxes, knees tucked close, ledger beneath her coat, her breath shallow in the cold. The metal floor vibrated under her. Her fingers grew stiff within minutes. The smell was awful. Sharp cheese, old plastic diesel, damp cardboard. She pressed her mother's cross against her lips. Not a prayer, a reminder. Hold. Her mother's voice found her in the dark, soft and close as steam on a bathroom mirror. "Count the exits first. Then count the people who love you." Ava counted. Eddie, Hank, Ruth. Maybe Malcolm Reed if memory had not lied. She did not count Roman, not because there had been no love, because love that arrived after ruin could not be used as shelter. The truck rolled for hours, sometimes fast, sometimes slow. Once it stopped for fuel. Voices moved outside. A pump clicked. Dale cursed at someone about diesel prices. Ava did not move. Her legs cramped. Her teeth chattered. She thought about Roman standing in her bedroom, finding the ring. She wondered if he had been angry. Of course he had. Men like Roman turned fear into anger before it could reach their faces. Then she wondered if he had found the letters. The thought made her stomach twist. Those letters had been written to a man who did not exist, or to a version of Roman she had once believed could exist. She imagined him reading them with cold eyes, judging her need, her hope, her humiliating patience. No. She stopped herself. That was the old room speaking, the old bed, the old silence. She was not in that room. She was in a freezing truck with a ledger under her coat and one flash drive hidden in her boot. She had other things to survive. Near noon, the truck slowed. Dale's voice came through the metal, muffled but clear enough. "Afternoon." Another voice answered. "Pull over for inspection." Ava's body went still. Dale laughed. "Inspection for cheese, random stop. Nothing random about making a man late. Open the back." Ava shut her eyes. There it was. The moment every road had been moving toward. She slid lower behind the boxes, pressing her spine to the metal wall. The ledger dug into her ribs. She held both hands over her mouth to trap the sound of breathing. The latch clanked. Light cut into the truck. A man coughed. "God, Dale. What died in here? Your standards. Move that pallet. That pallet weighs more than your cruiser. Move it." The boxes shifted. Ava heard Dale grunt. Heard cardboard scrape against metal. Heard boots step up into the truck. The flashlight came first. A white beam slid over the boxes, over the floor, over the wall, inches above her face. Ava became cargo. No breath, no blink, no thought except hold. The boots came closer. One box shifted above her. A thin rain of ice crystals fell onto her cheek. She did not flinch. The beam moved down, stopped. Her heart struck once so hard it seemed impossible the men did not hear it. Then Dale said, "You looking for women or cheese today?" The guard turned the light. "What?" "Because if it is women, I am offended. You think I could hide one in here. If it is cheese, congratulations. You found America's least glamorous crime." A pause. The guard laughed despite himself. "You are an idiot. Runs in my mother's side." The flashlight moved away. The pallet scraped back. The doors slammed shut. Darkness returned. The truck started moving. Ava stayed still for another full minute. Then breath tore out of her in one silent rush. She shook so hard her teeth clicked. Not because she had almost been caught. Because she had not. The difference was so thin it felt holy. Roman was less than 2 hours behind her when the storm lifted. He drove north in the old gray sedan, Ava's letters in a wooden box on the passenger seat and her ring in his coat pocket. He had left Chicago with no guards, no gun on his body, and no plan good enough to survive contact with the woman he had broken. The highway was flat and gray beneath a colorless sky. At every gas station, he stopped. At every diner, he asked. He showed Ava's photograph to cashiers, truckers, motel clerks, women smoking outside laundromats, one teenage boy walking a dog in a parking lot. "Have you seen her?" Most said no. Some looked at him like he was dangerous. They were right. One older woman behind a gas station counter outside Eau Claire studied the photo for a long time. Ava was smiling in the picture caught in the kitchen months ago in his white shirt, unaware of the camera. The woman looked up. "What did you do to her?" Roman almost gave the answer men like him gave. Something careful, something defensive, something that kept his pride clothed. Then he thought of Claire's voice. "Tell the truth. I told her I never loved her." The woman stared at him. "Did you know?" "Then why say it?" Roman looked down at the photograph. "Because I was afraid sounded too small. Because I thought love was a loaded gun sounded too dramatic. Because my father made me wrong sounded too easy. Because I wanted to hurt first," he said, "before she could." The woman's face hardened. "So you burned down the house because you feared a candle?" Roman nodded. "Yes." "Men?" She handed the photo back. "I have not seen her." He took it. "But if you do find her," the woman said, "do not start with sorry." Roman looked at her. The woman leaned on the counter. "Sorry is what people say when they want the pain to end. Tell her what you did. Tell her why. Then stand there and let her hate you." Roman folded the photograph carefully. "Thank you. I did not help you. I know." He left and sat in the car for several minutes with the engine off. Snow melted on the windshield. He touched the ring in his pocket. Ava's ring. No, the ring he had put on her finger. Not the same thing. His phone buzzed. "Vince." Roman considered ignoring it, then answered. "What Hayes knows, she is gone." Roman closed his eyes. "How?" "Someone at the house talked. Or someone at Bellamy's. Does not matter. His men are asking about a woman traveling north. Pull our people farther back. Roman Hayes will not bring her in gently." Roman gripped the steering wheel. "Then find out where Hayes is looking and mislead him. Already doing it. But I need authority to move if we see her." "You have authority to protect her, not take her." Vince's silence carried frustration and fear. "She has the ledger. I know. If Hayes gets it, he sells pieces to everyone and keeps the rest to gut us. I know. If the feds get it, we all go down." Roman looked at the road. Maybe going down is the first honest thing we have done. Do not talk like that. Why? Because men are listening to me, and I do not know what to tell them anymore. Roman leaned back. For 9 years, Vince had never sounded young. He did now. Tell them nothing, Roman said. Tell them to stay alive. What about you? Roman looked at Ava's photo on the seat. I am trying to learn how. He ended the call. The refrigerated truck dropped Ava near a bus station outside Duluth just after dusk. Dale opened the back doors and looked at her cramped body wedged behind the boxes. You alive? Ava unfolded herself slowly. Mostly. You smell terrible. So does your truck. That is how I know it is mine. He helped her down without looking directly at her, as if too much kindness embarrassed him. The sky was purple. The air tasted like snow and lake water. Traffic hissed on the road beyond the station. Dale handed her a paper cup of coffee from the cab. It is bad. I am used to bad coffee now. Hank said, call the number from here. Ava froze. What number? Dale took a folded slip from his pocket. Old man named Malcolm Reed. Ava stared at the name written in blue ink. How did Hank get this? Eddie made calls. Ruth made one too, I think. Everybody knows somebody when trouble is old enough. Ava took the paper. For a second the chain of it nearly knocked her over. Ruth in the mansion, Eddie on the road, Hank on the farm, Dale at the truck. People she had never earned risking pieces of their lives because somewhere, somehow, her mother had left sparks behind. Dale nodded toward the station. Cameras inside. Old ladies, too. Safer than outside. Ava held out her hand. Dale looked at its side like she had asked him to dance and shook it once. Do not thank me. I was not going to. Good. He climbed back into the truck and drove away. Ava entered the bus station with her bag over one shoulder and the original ledger strapped under her sweater. Inside, fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. A vending machine blinked beside the bathrooms. 2 college students slept across plastic seats. An old woman knitted near the window. A man in a hunting jacket read a newspaper from 3 days ago. Ava bought coffee and sat where she could see both doors. Then she opened the burner phone and dialed Malcolm Reed. He answered on the 5th ring. Who is this? His voice was older than she expected. Smooth, tired, and careful. Ava looked at her mother's silver cross in her palm. My name is Ava Monroe. Silence. Long enough for her to hear the station lights humming. Then the man inhaled. Little bird. Ava closed her eyes. Only her mother had called her that. You knew my mother. Yes. The word carried 20 years of grief. I have my father's ledger. The silence sharpened. Where are you, Duluth? Bus station. Are you alone? For the moment. Are you hurt? Ava almost said no. Then she looked at her cut palm, her bruised shoulder, her shaking knees, the ledger under her coat, the life behind her burning from the inside. Yes, she said. Malcolm's voice softened. Good. Lying wastes time. Stay where there are cameras. Do not go outside. Do not speak to anyone who says my name. A blue Lincoln will arrive in 30 minutes. The driver will say your mother's chosen birthday, September 3rd. Yes. If he says anything else, walk away and call me again. Ava looked out the window. Snow had begun falling under the parking lot lights. My father killed her. Another long silence. When Malcolm spoke, the carefulness was gone. Yes. The coffee cup trembled in Ava's hand. You knew. I knew after. Not before. If I had known before, Arthur Monroe would not have died in bed. Ava believed him. She did not know why. Maybe because rage sounded different when it had been kept alive for 20 years. "She was leaving him," Ava said. "She was leaving with you." My father stopped her. "Yes." Ava pressed the heel of her hand against her eye. "She let me love him." "No," Malcolm said. "She let you be a child as long as the lie allowed. There is a difference." Ava wanted to hate that answer. Instead, it sat in her like a stone. "What do I do now? You come to me. And then, we decide what kind of fire your mother would recognize." Ava looked at the ledger under her coat. "Roman is coming." "I know. How men like Roman Blackwell always follow what they should have protected." Ava's throat tightened. "I do not know if I want him dead." "Then do not decide tired." "I do not know if I want him alive either. That is also something not to decide tired." Ava almost smiled despite everything. The line clicked. Malcolm had hung up. 30 minutes later, a blue Lincoln pulled into the lot. The driver was a woman in her 40s with short gray hair and a long black coat. She entered the station, bought a pack of gum from the vending machine, then stopped beside Ava's bench without looking at her. "September 3rd was a better birthday than June," she said. Ava stood. The woman took her bag. "Mr. Reed is waiting." "What is your name, Dana? Do you know what I am carrying?" Dana looked at her then. "No. That is why I am still alive." They left through the side door. The Lincoln smelled like leather and peppermint. Ava sat in the back seat with the ledger pressed to her body, watching Duluth fade behind them as Dana drove south into the night. Roman reached the same bus station 47 minutes later. The old woman with the knitting needles was still there. He showed her the photograph. She studied it. She was here. Roman's heart stopped, then started too hard. When less than an hour. Was she alone? The woman's needles clicked. She looked like a woman who had learned not to be. Roman swallowed. Which way did she go? The woman looked at the photograph again, then at Roman's face. "You the husband?" "Yes." She was scared. "I know." "No," the woman said. "You know you scared her. That is not the same as knowing what fear did to her." Roman lowered the photo. "Please." The old woman's eyes stayed on him. A bus engine groaned outside. Someone laughed near the vending machine. The world continued being ordinary around him. "She left in a blue Lincoln," the woman said at last. Woman driver. Headed south. Roman closed his eyes. South. Not farther away. Toward someone. "Thank you. Do not make me regret it." Roman walked back into the snow. His phone buzzed again. This time the message came from an unknown number. "The Palmer Hotel, Minneapolis. Midnight. Come alone. No men, no weapons. If I see one Blackwell face, the ledger goes public before sunrise." Roman read it once, then again. The sentence was pure Ava, measured, clear, terrified of nothing she could name. He opened the glove compartment and removed the pistol he had told himself he would not need. He sat with it in his hand for a moment, feeling the familiar weight. Then he placed it beneath the spare tire in the trunk and shut the lid. A lie removed from reach was still a lie, but it was a start. He took Ava's ring from his pocket and held it in his palm. The diamond caught the gas station light. Cold. Beautiful. Useless unless chosen. Roman got into the car and drove toward Minneapolis. At the back of the Lincoln, Ava watched the dark highway gather itself ahead of her. The ledger rested against her ribs. The copies sat in her bag. One flash drive pressed into the side of her boot with every mile. Dana did not speak. Ava was grateful. Words had become expensive. Beyond the windshield, Minneapolis glowed faintly against the night sky, a city waiting with windows lit and rooms already chosen. Ava touched the silver cross at her throat. Her father's truth was in her hands. Roman was behind her. Malcolm Reed was ahead. And for the first time since the coffee cup shattered on Roman's marble floor, Ava was no longer only running. She was arriving. The Palmer Hotel stood in downtown Minneapolis, with its old brick face turned toward the snow, the kind of place that had seen politicians, widows, gamblers, and men with fake names pass through its lobby without asking any of them to explain themselves. Ava entered through a side door with Dana at her shoulder and the ledger pressed beneath her coat. The lobby smelled of lemon-polish wool coats and flowers that were too fresh for winter. A chandelier glowed above the front desk. A young couple argued softly near the elevators. A businessman slept in an armchair with his mouth open and one hand still curled around his phone. Normal life again. Ava was beginning to understand that normal life did not stop for anyone's heartbreak. It kept humming behind glass doors, buying coffee, checking in, complaining about room keys, walking past women carrying enough evidence to bury half the Midwest. Dana led her to a private elevator. No one spoke until the doors closed. "Mr. Reed is already upstairs," Dana said. Ava looked at her reflection in the brass doors. Her hair was pinned badly. Her cheeks were pale. There were shadows under her eyes that no amount of sleep would fix quickly. "Is Roman here?" "Not yet." Ava nodded once. The elevator rose. Her stomach stayed somewhere near the lobby. The suite on the 10th floor was larger than the motel room and smaller than Roman's bedroom, which made Ava like it immediately. Heavy curtains, dark green walls, a sitting room with 2 lamps and a round table near the window. The city glowed below, softened by falling snow. Malcolm Reed stood when she entered. He was tall in the way old men remain tall after their bodies begin to thin. Silver hair, navy sweater, a cane beside his chair that looked decorative until Ava noticed the blade hidden inside the handle. His eyes found hers. For a moment neither of them moved. Then he said very softly, "You have Lillian's mouth." Ava did not want to cry. Her body did not ask permission. The tears came fast, silent, humiliating in their force. Malcolm crossed the room slowly and stopped close enough for her to choose. He did not grab her. He did not claim her. He waited. Ava stepped forward. He held her like someone holding a child rescued from deep water. No questions, no speeches, no promises, just arms. When she finally pulled away, Malcolm handed her a handkerchief that smelled faintly of tobacco and cedar. "Your mother hated crying in front of people," he said. Ava wiped her face. She failed sometimes. All the best women do. Ava let out a broken breath that might have become a laugh in another life. The ledger went on the table. Malcolm did not touch it. Dana locked the suite door, checked the connecting room, then disappeared inside it with 2 men Ava had not seen enter. Quiet men. Steady men. Malcolm's people. Ava sat across from Malcolm. For the first time since she had opened the safe, she placed the ledger somewhere other than against her body. The absence of its weight made her feel exposed. Malcolm noticed. "Truth feels heavier before you set it down," he said. Ava looked at him. "I am not setting it down." "No," he said. "You are deciding where to aim it." The room went quiet. Outside, snow brushed against the windows. Far below, headlights moved like slow stars through the streets. Ava opened the ledger to the page with her mother's initials. Malcolm's face changed. Not surprise. Grief. "You loved her," Ava said. "Yes." "Did she love you?" He looked at Lillian's name on the page. "Yes." Ava's throat tightened. Then why did she stay with him? Because leaving a man like Arthur Monroe is not one decision. It is a war. She was waiting until she could take you without losing you. Ava looked down at her hands. My father let me think cancer took her. Arthur understood stories. A sickness is easier for a child to mourn than a murder. The words struck, but they also settled a terrible question. Ava had spent years trying to remember hospital rooms, medicine bottles, doctors' whispered calls. There had been so few, too few. Her father had filled the gaps with grief until she stopped seeing them. She turned to another page. Roman's father. Malcolm nodded. Thomas Blackwell was many things. Innocent was not one of them. But Arthur had him killed to control the succession. Roman inherited a throne built on a lie. Roman did not know. No. Ava hated the relief that moved through her. Malcolm saw that too. You do not have to forgive him because he was not guilty of every crime in the book. I know. Do you? Ava closed the ledger. He told me he never loved me. The sentence lay between them like broken glass. Malcolm's expression did not soften into pity. She was grateful for that. Did you believe him? Ava looked at the window. That morning, yes. And now? She closed her eyes. I believe he wanted me to believe it. That is often worse. A knock came at the suite door. 3 soft taps. Dana appeared from the connecting room and looked through the peephole. Her hand rested beneath her jacket. He is alone. Ava stood before she could think herself out of it. Malcolm rose too. You do not have to see him. Yes, Ava said. I do. Do you want me in the room? Ava looked at the ledger, then at the door. No. Malcolm studied her face. Then he nodded. I will be on the other side. Dana unlocked the door. Roman Blackwell stood in the hallway. No guards, no black coat army, no Vince Carter at his shoulder, no gun visible beneath his suit jacket. Snow had melted in his dark hair. His face looked drawn older, stripped of the calm that had once made him seem untouchable. His eyes went first to Ava's face, then to her bare left hand. Pain moved through him, and for once, he did not hide it quickly enough. Ava, he said. She stepped back, allowing him in. Do not say my name like it is an apology. Roman entered. Donna closed the door behind him. For a few seconds, they only looked at each other. The room seemed too small for the distance between them. Roman removed his coat slowly and placed it over the back of a chair. He lifted both hands, palms out. No weapon. Ava did not move. No men. No men. No tracker. Numb. Phone. He took it from his pocket and placed it on the table. Ava picked it up and dropped it into a glass of water. Roman watched it sink. He did not object. That was new. The ledger sat between them. Ava placed one hand on top of it. My father killed your father. Roman's eyes dropped to the book. I know. Do you? I know enough? No, Ava said. You know the headline. You do not know what it feels like to read your own life in a dead man's handwriting. Roman's jaw tightened, but he stayed silent. Good. Ava opened the ledger and turned it toward him. Thomas Blackwell. Payment authorized. $3.2 million. October 2019. Your father did not die in his sleep. My father bought the lie that let you inherit. Roman stared at the page. The room held its breath. Something moved behind his eyes. Grief first, then rage, then an older exhaustion. My whole life, he said quietly, men told me my father made me. Turns out another man finished the job. Ava turned another page. My mother tried to leave Arthur. She tried to take me. She called Malcolm Reed for help. My father had her removed before she could run. Roman looked up. The shock on his face was not performed. Ava watched cruelly because she needed to see whether he had known, whether every man in her life had been keeping the same secret. He had not known. That did not save him. But it mattered. "My mother did not die of cancer," Ava said. "She was murdered because she wanted to save me." Roman took one step toward her, then stopped himself. The small restraint hit harder than if he had crossed the room. "Ava," he said, and this time her name broke in his mouth. She lifted a hand. "No, you do not comfort me. Not yet." He nodded. His eyes shone, but no tear fell. She wondered if he was still fighting his father inside his own body. "You said you never loved me," she said. Roman closed his eyes. "Yes." "Look at me." He did. "Say why." He breathed in slowly. The old Roman would have turned cold here. He would have reached for control, for a clean answer, for a sentence sharp enough to keep her away. This Roman stood in a hotel suite with wet hair, no phone, no weapon, and fear plain on his face. "Because I did," he said. Ava laughed once. It was small and bitter. "That is not romantic. That is cowardice dressed in poetry." "Yes." The answer silenced her. Roman looked at the floor, then forced his gaze back to hers. "I loved you, and I hated what it did to me. I watched you in my house and felt something I had spent my life cutting out of myself. Want, fear, peace, all of it. I thought if I loved you, you became a place where someone could hurt me. I thought if I kept you lonely, I kept you safe from my world. I thought if I said the worst thing first, losing you would not destroy me." Ava's voice went soft. "And did it?" Roman's face broke. "Yes." The word entered the room without armor. Ava looked away before it could reach too much of her. "You made me beg without ever asking me to kneel." "I know. You made me grateful for crumbs." "I know. You let me believe patience was love." His voice was rough now. "I know. Stop saying that." Roman swallowed. "I do not know what else I am allowed to say. Nothing that expects forgiveness." He nodded. "Then I will say what is true." He reached into his coat pocket. Ava's body tensed. Roman noticed and moved slowly, taking out only her wedding ring. He placed it on the table beside the ledger. Not near her. Not offered. Returned. "I found your letters," he said. Ava went still. Color rose in her face, anger first. "You had no right." "I know." Her eyes flashed. "Roman, I am sorry. Not because you caught me. Because I read every word and realized I had been standing in the middle of a house on fire, complaining about the smoke." Ava's fingers curled against her palm. "Those letters were not for you. I understand that now." "No," she said. "They were for the man I hoped you might become. I wrote them because I needed somewhere to put the love you kept refusing to hold." Roman looked at the ring. "I do not deserve them." "No. I do not deserve you. No." This time he almost smiled, but it collapsed before it became one. "Good," he whispered. "You should know that." Silence stretched between them. Ava walked to the window. The city below looked soft, almost innocent. A hotel sign blinked red across the street. Snow gathered on ledges and car roofs and the shoulders of strangers. Behind her, Roman did not move. That was the first mercy he had ever given her without being asked. "What do you want from me?" she said without turning. "Nothing." She turned then. "I do not believe you." "I know. Do not say that again." He nodded. She looked at him for a long moment. You came all this way for nothing. I came to tell you that you were loved badly by a man who mistook control for protection. I came to tell you that the thing I said at breakfast was a lie. I came to tell you that if you release the ledger, I will testify." Ava blinked. Roman continued before she could speak. "I will give names, accounts, storage houses, judges, police contacts, the routes Arthur used and the routes my father built. I will give everything I know. And in exchange, no exchange. Roman Blackwell does not make gifts. He did not," Roman said. "Maybe he died somewhere between Chicago and here." Ava studied him carefully. "If you testify, your own people will hunt you." "Yes." "You could go to prison." "Yes." "The Blackwell name will burn." Roman looked at the ledger. It already should have. Ava felt something shift in the room. Not forgiveness, not trust. Something quieter. The recognition that truth could arrive too late and still be truth. She returned to the table. "The ledger goes to federal prosecutors and to 3 journalists at the same time. Copies are already out of your reach." Roman nodded. "You will not interfere." "No." "You will not send men after Ruth, Eddie, Hank Dale, Malcolm Dana, or anyone who helped me. No. You will give Vince Carter one chance to walk away before the indictments land." Roman looked surprised. Ava's mouth tightened. "He told you the truth about me being smart. That means he is not completely useless." For the first time, Roman gave a breath that almost became laughter. It died quickly. Ava picked up the ring. It sat in her palm, bright and cold. For 11 months she had worn it like proof that someday her marriage might become real. Now it looked like what it was. A beautiful circle, a closed shape. She placed it back on the table. "I am not coming back." Roman's eyes closed for 1 second. When he opened them, he nodded. "I know. You will never look for me again unless I contact you first." His throat moved. "Yes. You will not turn your guilt into a way to stay in my life." That one hurt him. She saw it. Good. Pain could be useful when it told the truth. "Yes," he said. Ava stood very still. Part of her wanted him to fight. That was the broken part, the part trained by 11 months of silence to mistake pursuit for devotion. But the stronger part of her wanted the door. Roman stepped toward it, then stopped. "If there is another life," he said. Ava shook her head. "Become a better man in this one." Roman looked at her like he was trying to memorize a person he had spent almost a year refusing to see. Then he opened the door. Malcolm stood in the hall. The 2 men looked at each other. Old grief passed between them. Old crimes. Old names. Roman spoke first. "She is under your protection." Malcolm's voice was calm. "She is under her own. I am nearby." Roman accepted the correction. He looked back at Ava once. No plea, no command, no promise wrapped around a chain. Just one last look. Then he left. Ava closed the door and leaned her forehead against it. Her knees trembled. For a moment, she thought she might fall. Malcolm entered quietly and stood beside her without touching. After a while, Ava said, "He meant it." "Yes. That does not fix it." "No." She closed her eyes. "I wanted it to." "I know." Ava turned from the door. On the table, the ledger waited. So did the ring. She picked up the ledger. She left the ring behind. 6 months later, Chicago woke to sirens that did not stop. The first indictments landed before dawn. By noon, 3 judges had resigned. 2 police commanders had vanished, and a state senator stood in front of cameras declaring innocence with the expression of a man watching his own signature appear on television. The Blackwell organization cracked open next. Warehouses seized, accounts frozen, union offices raided. Men who had once entered restaurants through private doors now walked into federal buildings with their jackets over their wrists. Roman Blackwell testified for 11 days. He wore a Navy suit and no wedding ring. He gave names until the courtroom stopped murmuring. He gave dates until prosecutors ran out of folders. He gave his father his allies, his enemies, and himself. Vince Carter took a deal after Roman visited him once in holding. No one knew what was said between them, but Vince came out pale and signed papers before dinner. Franklin Hayes fled west and was arrested outside Flagstaff with 2 passports, $400,000 in cash, and a blood pressure problem that sent him briefly to a hospital before prison took him. Ruth Callahan disappeared the night before federal agents came to the mansion. They found her room clean, her closet empty, and a note addressed to Ava left inside a cracked teacup. Your mother would have been proud. The Blackwell mansion was sold at auction, then bought by a developer who tore down the iron gates first. Ava did not watch the news from Chicago, not directly. She lived under the name Ava Lane in Portland, Oregon, in a small apartment above an art restoration studio. Her hair was shorter. Her coffee cups did not match. The floor creaked near the kitchen. Rain tapped the windows most mornings, gentle and persistent. She repaired damaged paintings for people who never asked why her hands were so careful. Some nights she woke at 3 and counted exits. Bedroom window, front door, fire escape, street below. Then she counted people. Ruth somewhere alive. Eddie, who sent 1 postcard with no return address and only 3 words. Denise would approve. Hank, who mailed a photograph of a pig named Senator. Malcolm, who died in his sleep 3 months after the first convictions, with Ava sitting beside his bed and Lillian's photograph on the table. Roman did not write. Not at first. Then one morning in late autumn, an envelope arrived with no return address. Inside was a photograph. The Blackwell mansion, half demolished white stone broken open beneath a gray sky. The front gates were gone. The windows were empty. The house looked smaller without fear living inside it. On the back, in Roman's handwriting, were 4 words. You were right too. Ava stood by the kitchen table for a long time. Rain moved down the glass. Her left hand was bare. She opened the drawer where she kept old things. Her mother's cross when she was not wearing it. Ruth's note. Eddie's postcard. The photograph of Lillian and Malcolm. A dried petal from Malcolm's funeral. She placed Roman's photograph inside. Not in the trash. Not in a frame. A drawer was honest. Some things did not need to be destroyed. They only needed to stop being carried. Ava closed the drawer. Downstairs, the bell over the studio door rang. A customer called her name. Her chosen name. She picked up her chipped blue coffee cup and looked once at the rain-washed window. For the first time in a long time, she did not imagine the road behind her. She imagined the room below. Paintings waiting. Work to do. A life that did not ask permission before beginning. Ava smiled before she opened the door.